Hi, good afternoon, Lama. How are you today? Thank you so much for joining us. How's everything going?
I'm good. I'm good, Rafa. Thank you so much for having me on this. This is such an honor to be here.
Great. Thank you so much for taking your time and joining us. For everyone here, we have here Lama El Hato from Egypt, as you can see from the beautiful pyramids that she has back in her background. So thank you so much for taking your time. For everyone watching here, the idea of this project is create a space where we invite international experts in business in different markets around the world to talk about the cultural and communication aspects of doing business in their countries. So we're not talking about technical issues, just the cultural aspects. And thank you so much again, Lama. It's fantastic to have you here and to speak about a country that's very interesting, not only in tourism wise, but business wise as well. And I know a lot of people are interested in entering the market there. So as I've done with all the other interviewees, we have 7 questions and we'll begin now. So the first question, Lama, tell us a little bit more about you and what kind of work that you do, please.
Of course. First off, think this is such an honor to be here. Thank you so much, Rafa, for doing this. This is wonderful. So my name is Lamal Hato, and I'm an environmentalist. Basically, I do several things. I wear several hats, but it all encompasses under the environment and climate change space. I'm currently a professor. I teach as a full-time faculty member at Johns Hopkins University here in Washington, D.C. in the U.S. I teach several courses under the Environmental Science and Policy and Energy Policy and Climate departments related to international waters, international climate change policy, sustainability science, environmental risk assessment, environmental and climate change security, and others. Um, I've been in the climate and environmental space for going on, I would say, 15 to 20 years. I've worked at IFC, the World Bank, for 14 years, where I currently also work as a consultant. I also consult for the GCF, the Green Climate Fund in Korea. And I do a lot of work also back home in relation to working with civil society organizations, and especially environmental NGOs, and building capacity around trying to understand the climate space and how we can work in our country, specifically developing country contexts on supporting civil society to gain traction. In a nutshell, that's pretty much what I do.
No, it's fantastic. It's a lot that you do. And it's interesting because to have you in this conversation and introducing your work, because you are very international, you traveled, you have this international mindset. So that's important for everyone to understand as well. And for you to know that how foreigners think when they actually look to Egypt or when they arrive in Egypt. So it's important that you have this international background. So thank you so much, Lama. For the second question, what are some of the things you recommend people to do or say when first meeting and speaking with a person with whom they might be interested in initiating a new project or business opportunity together in Egypt? And also, what should someone not do or say in this first encounter?
So Egyptians in general, very, very warm, very, very warm, very hospitable. They love interpersonal interactions. And I think that this works in many countries around the world. I know Latin Americans are very much the same. It's you're doing business with a person. You're not doing it with a company. It's not and necessarily. And so it's really about getting to know and connecting with that person on that level. So family is a very, very big part of our culture. Getting to know their family, getting to connect to their family, getting to know how they're doing on that level is very important. How is their family? How are their parents, their children? How's that going? Is a very, I think, a really important part of connecting with someone and making sure, since it's such a strong ingrained part of who we are. Um, we love food. Egyptians love food, and we have fantastic food. So if you want to connect to Egyptians is also over food. And the best way to be able to connect with an Egyptian is over a meal. When we have the saying, also in Arabic, is when we break bread together, it's automatically we're connecting in that space. One of the things that we love to do is to host people over at our house and have them, eat a meal, a home cooked Egyptian meal. And that's something that's really, really important to us, is to be able to break bread with someone, to be able to connect on that level. So when meeting someone from Egypt, understanding a little bit about how the culture, in terms of the understanding the family and sort of understanding how close knit we are with one another is a very important part of trying to really connect with them on a human level and a personal level, as opposed to, well, how is the economy or how's the politics and how's that, which are all important conversations that need to be had. they're lesser connections than they are sort of superficial level ideas of what's happening in the country on that level. So if you really want to connect, get to the core of the person in their family, of who they are, of what really makes them alive. And in Egypt, those are the things that really do help us tick.
That's great. No, it's great recommendations. This breaking the ice moment. It's important to identify this connection initially with them, so to make them feel comfortable as well. Fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing that. The third question, it's a little bit similar to what you were talking a little bit now about the culture. We recognize that it's important to have a deeper cultural understanding of a local place when doing business there. What cultural aspects might be considered when doing business in Egypt?
Well, I mean, so there are certain things, gender-wise, for instance. Let's talk about, for instance, I always advise this to, for instance, my female colleagues, if they're coming to visit Egypt and doing business in Egypt, for instance, is being presentable and how you present yourself and how you're being and how you're dressed appropriately. It is a Muslim predominant country at the end of the day, and so being dressed appropriately makes a big difference. Oftentimes you see a lot of tourists walking in the streets with tank tops and shorts, and that might be appropriate for the beachside areas and tourist resorts, but in urban settings, it's a major faux pas. So definitely similarly when you're walking into business meetings and making sure that you are dressed appropriately, modestly, I would say is the best thing. And this goes for women, obviously, but it also goes for men is a big thing too, is just making sure that you're very presentable. Presentability in Egypt is a very big thing, is how you look and how you come off in terms of presentability is quite important. Um, so making sure that you are presentable in the way that you appear is a big thing. Modesty is also really important. Make sure that you're not wearing, if you're wearing a suit, for instance, as a female, not being a short skirt or something that is modest, and making sure that that's also sort of appropriate for the context that you're coming into. I think that sign gives a sign of respect for the culture and for the people as well that you're coming to visit. I think other cultural things that is important, and we mentioned this earlier, is really making an effort to sort of break the ice and making sure that you can do that with people in that culture. So my father always said, when you're coming to meet a stranger for the first time, there are two topics that are always off the topic and always taboo. Never have those conversations. And I feel like those really embody Egyptian culture. Never talk about religion and never talk about politics. And I feel like that's something that has tend to become a thing when in Egypt when you're coming to meet someone or to talk to someone and get to know someone for the first time. Let's stay off because those are two very sensitive and controversial topics within Egypt: the religion topic and the politics topic. So off when you're coming to get introduced and to breaking the ice and to getting to know someone a little bit better, I would say stick to my daddy's advice and stay off of religion and stay off of politics.
Oh, fantastic. Well noted. Well, everyone watching should take note of this, especially in this first encounter, that when you're getting to know the person, you want to build the rapport, the empathy, and absolutely. So we'll take note of that. Thanks so much. The fourth question, Lama, if someone does not speak Arabic, what do you suggest a foreigner do to be able to communicate more successfully with locals in Egypt and to be able to do business there if they do not speak Arabic?
Well, and that's totally fine. I think in Egypt the beauty is that most people have a good understanding of English, and even if they don't speak it fluently, they'll be able to get by. And for better or for worse, this has a product of the colonization by the British, but so everyone there does understand or speak some level of English, and so understanding that and knowing that if you can get by, if you speak English to them, a couple of words, you will get by. But it's always nice to be able to, if you can, of course, before you go, learn a few words of Arabic, like marhaba or ahlan wa sahlan, which basically means how are you and hello, how are you today? Izayak is how are you? Salamu alaikum is peace be. How are you? Hello, peace to you. And there are certain things. Shukran is a big one. Say thank you whenever possible. Please and thank you are always big things that my mother always embodied, and I think they're just signs of respect for people in general in any culture. Egypt has a very big sense of hierarchical. It's a very hierarchical society in terms of revering our elders and revering seniors and superior in that sense. And so having respect for also elders in that way is very, very important when you're coming to our cultures. Make sure that no matter who you're speaking to, always make sure that you respect sort of the elders and the other in that way. Um, I think that those could be nice tips. You get by using English quite well, but if you can learn a couple of Arabic words here and there, it'll go a long way.
Perfect. Thank you. I knew shukran only, so I'm learning a few others with you. Later, I'm going to ask you to write those down for me to share with everyone in the article. Great. Thanks so much. The fifth question, has a little bit more to do with communication, marketing. How a company can present their product and services in Egypt, in the Egyptian market. So the question is, to get better results in visibility or sales, what are your recommendations on the most effective ways to do marketing for products or services in Egypt? How do they get their message across to the Egyptians in the market?
I mean, social media, just like it has everywhere else in the world, has really picked up in Egypt too, and it's become a big storm. So the whole Instagram, TikTok space is a very big one, and has been used quite predominantly by a lot of companies to open up that space and to really sort of market their ideas. Um, we're still very big as well on billboards. Billboards are a big thing if you go to the Cairo urban spaces, you go to the Alexandria urban spaces, you'll see a lot of that is very big. So a lot of, for instance, real estate companies, you'll see big billboard signs across the streets which really attract the eye. Egypt is very much it's a city that comes alive at all times of the day. In the evening, it really comes alive, and so it's a city that never sleeps. And so you'll always find people in the streets always. Um, so making the streets, marketing in the streets is one tactic that we end up seeing a lot of companies and a lot of organizations try to do. So you'll find billboards, you'll find signs, you'll find a lot of sort of gimmicks that are happening within the streets to attract people, since people are really always in the streets. Um, so that's one thing. The commercials, advertising in terms of commercials, TV commercials are actually a really big thing too, especially since a lot of Egyptians really uh, do end up watching certain TV commercials and quite a bit. And so I'll use the example of a real estate company this last summer, that in Egypt, that actually decided to invest in the northern coast of Egypt on the Mediterranean Sea. And this company was trying to attract users to come in and to buy from their units within this residential touristic development that was happening on the north coast. And they put in an advert. They put in two types of marketing strategies. They did a billboard on several billboards across Cairo spaces about this, using a specific celebrity figure that I'll come to now. And they also used a TV advert of this exact celebrity figure also in this residential this development. And they brought in Sylvester Stallone, which is obviously a very big celebrity figure, and you don't need to go and pay millions of dollars or however much you would get to get Sylvester Stallone. But they got Sylvester Stallone, and they put a picture of Sylvester Stallone in this development, along with also in the advert, Sylvester Stallone sitting on the beach in this development. And within the span of 24 hours, the development had sold a good 80% of their units within 24 hours of marketing Sylvester Stallone, both by billboards and by TV commercials, which was shocking for a country that is screaming from poverty and inflation currently right now. Says, where is all this money coming from? But clearly there is still money. There is still money in the country, but also the fact that people do get attracted to these kinds of things. And that's something that I think that is to be noted about the way that this development company, this real estate company, and the way they did it were very clever. They were very, very clever. So that's just an example of sort of how Egyptians are also, they do get attracted to those kinds of things. And even sort of the notion, and a lot of what is being said in World Bank reports and IMF and otherwise, is that Egypt is going through an inflation and economic recession currently, which is all true. There is still a lot of money in the country clearly that is being spent, and so there are ways to access it should you know how in terms of marketing.
Great, Lama. No, just fantastic. The question is, did Stallone get a unit as well, or perhaps
I that
we
I
don't
think
know.
so. I think Sylvester Stallone got the biggest villa on the beach on the North Coast. So I think
Yeah.
he got lucky.
But they have beautiful beaches up in the north. They say it's
Stunning.
gorgeous. Yeah. No,
He's
but
just
just to
very, very
recap,
blessed that
you mentioned really important that mass marketing, the billboards, the commercials, the TVs are still used, and of course social media. So social media, you mentioned Instagram and TikTok mostly, right? To get the niches as well. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Lama. The sixth question really has to do more with empathy. You did mention a little bit more a little earlier in the other questions, empathy. So really, how do you connect with the locals? If you have a business partner in Egypt who wants to get to know you better, invites you to a local coffee or tea place, a restaurant, or even a virtual happy hour, what kind of topics do people like to talk about in Egypt? But that's not related to business, for example. So it's really to just connect with someone, create this empathy.
way. I mean, the truth is, I mean, the hot topic, you go to any coffee shop and you go to any, a coffee shop in Egypt is called an ahwa. An ahwa is where which literally translates into coffee. In Arabic,
Okay,
ahwa is
great.
coffee. But an ahwa is also a coffee shop where you would sit down and have tea. Ironically, you would have tea with mint and a shisha, which is a hookah. And ahwas are very common across the country, and they are the place of social interactions. That's where everybody goes to sit and meet and get to know what's happening in the pulse of the streets. So sitting in an ahwa with your business partner, with your colleagues or otherwise, you'll find several topics being discussed right now. And obviously the biggest one that's on the agenda is Palestine and Gaza and what's happening right now with the genocide by Israel on both Palestine and in Lebanon and what's happening in the region. Is a lot of those atrocities and how the Egyptians, what can we do and what can we not do and how can we help support and what humanitarian aid can we provide? A lot of the refugees that are coming across the border, of course, how can we support the Palestinians that are currently residing in Egypt? So a lot of the conversations are around what can we do to help and support. And similarly with the Sudanese, with the war in Sudan, a lot of the Sudanese have come across the border into Egypt, and so there's a lot of um, mobilizing around helping people from both Sudan and from Palestine. Egypt really is sort of stuck in the middle with all geographically very in volatile, violent areas around us, and so it's no surprise that the topic of conversation at every ahwa that you will go to will be around Palestine and Sudan and what's happening in Israel and how we can begin to help and support and what can we do and mobilize in the street. So that will be an obvious one, which again goes against my father's advice of talking politics, but it is the topic on that you will see discussed in every ahwa. Um, Another thing that you will see if you're talking about empathy is to really understand that the Egyptian people, because of the economic inflation right now and recession, are really struggling. People are really, really struggling. And you know, I know my previous answer was talking about how there's a lot of money and people are buying villas in the North Coast with Sylvester Stallone adverts and billboards. But the truth is it's a very small niche of society that is also able to afford that. The vast majority of the people are struggling very, very bad. This situation is quite intense across all levels. And I think that sort of conversation is trying to see if there is this element of empathy and trying to empathize with the people and what's happening, is just to really understand their struggles, what's happening, why it's happening for them, and then how in whatever form you can support. And this doesn't have to be support in terms of financial, charity or otherwise. It could be, should you choose to, but that's not necessarily what people are also looking for. It's also trying to be able to find a connection in how we can be able to support one another also emotionally in that way. And I think that empathizing with that is a very big thing because that is a very predominant struggle right now with the vast majority of Egyptians in the street. There's a very serious economic struggle where most people um, are really, really having it quite badly.
No, it's well spoken. I mean, it's very clear, and it's important that someone, as a foreigner coming in, understands, can relate to what's really happening there, not what you just read or see on TV, or yeah, just those people buying those units. I mean, that's a small portion of what the reality is on the ground. No, thanks for sharing that, Lama. The last question, actually, the seventh question, you did give already some inputs on but it'd be great if you can highlight one. The question is one word that everyone should learn in Arabic. What is that, and why should they learn that? You gave a couple great ones, so I love to share those that you already mentioned. But which one do you think is the number one or one word or phrase that we should know, that we should learn when we go to Egypt?
I would have to say Salamu alaikum.
Okay.
Salamu alaikum can also be shortened. Salamu alaikum literally translates into peace be upon you, but it's also a way of saying hi. Salamu alaikum, hi, hello. But it's you can actually shorten it to salam. Salam is peace, literally translated into peace, but it's also hi, hello, salam. And I think it goes a long way to going into a country and just understanding that there are, of course, sort of the religious connotations of Salamu alaikum is coming from sort of, peace be upon you, and blessings and peace upon you. But it's also it's understanding the cultural, religious and cultural connotations behind it, but it's also understanding that that's sort of the very common way that people address each other in the streets and say, Salam alaikum, how are you? It's a very common phrase that if you wanted to go in and integrate really, really quickly, it's a great way to be able to do that.
No, thank you. That's a beautiful word. I know that word, and if you can spell it out for me too, to make sure I have it written well. But I think it's a very important word. So thank you. I will share that in the article. Fantastic. Shukran. Shukran is a word I've learned many times, and you said way in the beginning is that thank you is an important word in any language to learn. So, but yeah, I think it's great to put this in the article. Thank you so much, Lama. We've come to
You're
an
more than
end.
welcome.
We've come to an end, and thank you so much for being part of this project, for sharing your insights, recommendations, real life, valuable experience that you know of your country and culture wise. I hope this interview also benefits you and brings opportunities for you. Any final words, comments you want to share with the public here watching?
Welcome to Egypt anytime. You are more than welcome. We would love to host you and have you always.
That goes to me. I need to go there as soon as possible. I've never been. So it's a place I want to go. Thank you so much, Lama. Thanks for your time. I appreciate everything. Thanks so much. Have a good day. Bye.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.